So now I'm going to ask you some questions. The first one is I'm going to ask you to describe your professional educational background. Yeah.
Yeah. Hi, my name is Nader Nadernejad. I'm a digital marketing specialist specializing in online reputation management. And my background is in journalism. I'm a journalism graduate from the University of King's College, and I hold a Bachelor of Journalism honors degree. So my experience goes in the newsroom and as a freelance reporter, but also right now specializing in specifically online reputation.
Okay, so how did you develop your expertise in your profession?
Yeah, so I started in full service digital marketing when I was 18. I always had an interest in social media. I loved creating videos. I had a YouTube channel on the go. And ever since I was a kid, I had been creating videos. And one day when I was at my school, an author, his name is Sigmund Bauer, he came to my school and he did a presentation. So I tweeted him and he saw that I had a YouTube channel. So he said, you're young, you're making videos. Why don't you start making videos for me? So we started making videos together. And at that point, I realized I also had a knack for marketing those videos. So by the time I went to university, I needed extra income to pay my tuition and to pay my housing, and I was in a bit of a crunch. So I started my own digital marketing agency, and it was just me by myself, and I was creating content.
Okay.
And then that eventually turned into online reputation management within a few years.
Perfect. So how do you normally seek information for professional purposes?
My number one way to look for information is the Google search engine, but I delve beyond Google. So what I do is I'll conduct a search of somebody, I'll write their name in search engines, and then I'll look for everything. I look at the first, second, third page. I'll go as far down as possible and really see what the search is indexing. I generally work with people. My field is in B2C, so I'm working with customers to help them elevate their online presence. I work with a lot of people who have negative online reputations. Some of them they've been slandered. Some of them are former convicts. So I work with a lot of people who I believe deserve a second chance. And I look on Google, but then I also use tools. I use plugins, and I use something called Mangools, which allows me to actually audit every search page and find articles that are linking to other articles on the web, which allows me to delve deeper and find things that aren't usually indexed.
Yeah. So the next question, actually, you already talked about the next question. So what are some of the key places you seek professional information? You talk about use Google, use some plugins, anything else?
Well, I love to stay on top of my industry. So what I do is I always go to YouTube, and there's a guy by the name of Neil Patel, and he's a really great SEO expert, so search engine optimization. And I go on his website, and he has a lot of great tools that allow you to look for keywords. I love to see what's trending in the media. I use a tool called BuzzSumo. BuzzSumo lets you look online and find all the relevant content. You can actually find it by date. So I can type in something like best recipes, and I can see all the top posts from the last week or the last month. I can see the social shares, I can see what networks they've been placed on, and I can see who's sharing it and when. So I can generate the same content to the same effect and kind of mimic what's successful. So I use some other tools, but I'm primarily always going back to that search engine. I'm looking for resources from people I trust in the industry.
Perfect. Okay, so what is the most challenging part in your information seeking process?
The most challenging part is that search does not encapsulate who the person really is. So in my business, I have a saying, and it's let's create an online presence more like you. And the reason for that is that what's on the internet is not the person. For example, I have some people who they have a negative article. That's the main case I encounter. And there's just one thing about them. Now, if there's only one thing about you on the internet, that's only one source. And in science and media and any field in the world, you never just look at one source. You need multiple sources. So I know on the internet, if there's not a lot of information indexed, especially about individuals, that's not the be all and end all. There's a lot more. So the biggest challenge is finding out, what that person does. And in my industry, I call them and I talk to them and we do an interview. So I get to the bottom of who they are. But that can't be done with a search engine. It's done with an interview.
Yeah. So you cannot find everything from searching, right? Sometimes it could be biased. You don't find everything about one person. Okay, so what is easy and enjoyable for your information seeking process?
what's really enjoyable is finding out about the person. In terms of the information seeking process, I like to build a picture of what's lacking. So as I kind of split my monitor in two, and I'll go through search and I'll see, okay, this person has one news article ranking, but do they have social media? And I try to put together a picture. So I build the brand out, and what I do is I build brands, and I want them to look positive to people who are searching. It's called impression management. So I want to manage the impression that people are encountering of this brand. So what I'm doing is I'm formulating in that separate tab what this person looks like, how their brand makes us feel. What am I associating this person with? So that's something that I'm constantly doing. That's my favorite part, is finding out what's not there, what's missing, what's lacking, and then helping that shine. So what I do is I write articles from 500 to 1,000 words, and I syndicate them on Google News publishers. And this allows them to rank on search. And I can rank anything on that first page, and I can push anything off that first page, which will effectively manage the impression of my client.
Perfect. So can you describe a specific situation where you have to find information related to your profession? For example, where do you go? How do you determine if information is current, accurate, and authoritative?
Well, this was all taught to us in journalism. So if I'm finding industry information, or if I'm just researching in general, I'm not working on a specific campaign with an agenda, I want to find information that's true. What I'll do is I'll fact check things. So I'm looking for multiple sources. I'm looking to make sure that, okay, who are they sourcing? Is this a real person? I'm looking for, if I'm looking at one news article, I want more than one subject. And I'm also clicking on the news tab of Google. But what you have to remember is what's on the news tab of Google is not necessarily real. I can write anything in the world right now, and I can publish 10 articles in the news tab of Google. One great trick to see if you have fact-checking websites, and you have websites that will tell you, I can't name them off the bat, but if you just look up a Google search of fact-checking websites or fake news site checker, you can actually see which sites have been reported as not being truthful, or which sites are right-leaning or left-leaning. So it's important to understand, what outlets are more objective, where is it coming from, is it a news source, is it a blog post? So making that differentiation. And another thing that also helps, which nobody really talks about, is Wikipedia has one of the best sourcing on the entire internet. If I want to write an article about somebody, I have to use sources. I have to index in order to get a article published about William Wang. What I have to do is I have to source news articles. You can actually run sources against Wikipedia and see if they're blacklisted. And generally, if news sites are blacklisted by Wikipedia, they are not trusted sites. And that the whole contributor community comes together to find those links to say, okay, if somebody is sourcing this article and using this fake news site, we're not going to trust it as a source. So that's something that I've never heard talked about in the industry.
Wow. Nader was super informative. He offers some really good insights. All right. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Happy to help. Thanks for the interview.